First of all, greetings from Switzerland, from Zurich. It's a beautiful late morning here, a bit rainy, which is not uncommon. In summer in Switzerland, there's a joke for all the expats who come to live in Switzerland that how beautiful Swiss summer is. I love it. This year it was on Tuesday. So I'm a founder and the CEO of Nanos. Nanos AI is a machine learning startup for online marketing. And my background is, I'm coming from corporate research. I used to work at the Walt Disney Company and was leading a team, innovation team for creating technologies, machine learning technologies, AI, augmented virtual reality for one of the largest entertainment companies in the world, Walt Disney Company. So after 7 years being in a corporate career, I came up to the idea of applying machine learning algorithms to online marketing and came up with the idea of Nanos, which is a self-service platform for anybody who doesn't have much knowledge about marketing, to very easy to create and place online advertisements and have online visibility. So I would love to share my screen because I have such a beautiful deck I prepared for you guys, and it would be such a waste if nobody can see it. Okay, nevertheless, I will continue. So my background is in math, finance, and law, and I possess about 20 patents in multimedia, pre-visualization, machine learning, and also online marketing technology. I have publications in IEEE, Infovis, IAI, and iSeeds. Probably these names don't tell you much if you're not a computer scientist, but I can reassure you they're very prominent venues for marketing or for machine learning specialists. So what I would like to do is to give you a hands-on overview, non-tech, 30 minutes monologue with Q&A included, where we could chat about product, about data, hiring, patents, marketing, stocks, fundraising, and exiting a company. Pretty much key secrets, take-home messages of how to build and run a tech startup. So during this session, we will just answer those questions. How can I start a machine learning company if I have no technical background myself? What is machine learning exactly, and why there is so much hype about it by large corporations, startups, investors, and customers? How to figure out if my future product can be developed with just software, or is there a strong need in machine learning technology specifically? Or what to do if I have no previous data to start with to create a product? How and where to hire the best machine learning talent that I can afford for my new awesome tech idea. And also not very, let's say, very just recent development, how pandemic has changed the way artificial intelligence and machine learning startups used to work, hire, and raise money. So I would say I would keep on going with the yes, I can clearly see that you guys from the audience can really help me to share my screen. I'm happy to send you the deck afterwards if you connect with me on LinkedIn, Sasha Schriber. So let's imagine you have an awesome idea for your new company, and you clearly see it will be a machine learning company because you want to use machine learning technology. Maybe you have a connection with the university, you plan to hire students, or simply you realize that you cannot really create your product without using machine learning technology. So this would be the very first fundamental question you have to ask yourself. Can I build my product with just software engineering production with software developers, or do I really need machine learning algorithms? Because nowadays everyone claims to be in AI space, but what really makes you a truly tech company? So one of the key differentiators would be if you plan to patent your product or any features related to your product, which is not UX and which is not code, because you cannot patent code. If you talk to a lawyer and they'll tell you there's nothing to patent there, most likely it would be very difficult for you to call yourself a machine learning company. It might sound very trivial, but it is exactly what it is, because when you develop a technology, machine learning technology, it is very common for larger companies who have large budgets to patent this technology to make sure that they secure the IP space. For startups, smaller startups, it's rather uncommon, and it is a decision that every startup founder has to make, whether if they should delegate certain budgets towards patent creation or not. And I will be talking about patents later, but when you're talking to the lawyer and they tell you well, there's just the code and you can't really find anything novel in your idea or concept, then most likely it would be also very difficult to project this idea onto your customers or onto potential investors. Another potential differentiator would be it's important to work with universities when you build a machine learning company, because you as a founder, it's really difficult to keep yourself up to date with all the recent industry technological development, because you're so focused on the industry and you focused on tracking what competitors are doing, focused on developing your own product and how it looks and feels for your customers, but really making sure that you're up to date with all the research that is happening in your field. It is where students come really handy. So these are two probably key differentiators where you can already say, okay, I can call myself a truly tech company. More about these topics you can find on my YouTube channel, Sasha Schriber's YouTube channel, or also on my LinkedIn social media profile. Next topic I would like to touch upon is product and data. Building a product on top of a prototype. This is what lots of founders decide to do early on, and this is a decision that might fire back in very different places later down the road, which can be really painful. So how to avoid mistakes, which I have done and also many of my colleagues, startup founders, have done as well. So when you're building a machine learning technology, you usually start with a research code and a prototype, which then you most likely will be keen on developing further, because it's such a pity to throw it away and being forced to build something from scratch once again. But I would definitely recommend you to consider this, because building a product on top of prototype will require a lot of efforts in sustaining it. It's almost like putting a band-aid constantly onto your new product, and it can be really, really costly in time and efforts, and hiring additional software developers in order just to keep this whole very lively creature alive. And introducing new features would be really also very, very difficult. So if you're planning to build a product on top of an existing research prototype, we have to have two very important things in place. One is a very experienced product owner who knows how to handle research code and production and launching it in a timely manner. And also you need to have at least one very good senior developer, or work with a very good outsourcing company who has senior developers who have dealt with similar challenges in the past. Another very interesting topic and question which I'm being asked a lot is, I want to build a product powered by AI, but I have no data. What to do? This is something we also have encountered with Nanos. When we started our product, there were just not so many ad campaigns we could get our hands on. And it was really difficult to see if our machine learning algorithms work, if our models work, or if they need additional tweaking. And then when real campaigns started to arrive, we saw, okay, we really need apply some serious techniques here, how to tweak to make sure that our models are a bit more generic. And what we did, it's a cold start problem, because if you don't have much data, then it's really, your model is only as good as good your data is. And if your data is dirty, or you have a complete absence of data, then really you cannot really produce good results for your customers. And this is something what we also had to do, is we built cold start ad simulator. So we practically had to simulate ad creation process and create tons of different ads for different industries, different products, in order to feed our machine learning algorithms who were really hungry. Next topic, very important one, is Unhiring, because your concept, your idea, your product might be very, very good, but it's really up to the team that builds it that is your product is so dependent on. So how to find the right tech talent, and how to also to make sure that they stick around, and how to compensate them fairly, and also what to ask when interviewing. And also sometimes I'm receiving these questions from fellow founders who are saying, look, I want to build a machine learning product, but I'm really not a techie myself. And is that okay? How I'm going to hire technical talent and make sure that they produce good results? This could be really truly a challenge if you're not a technical founder yourself. And this is why it's crucially important to have another key founder, like a CTO or head of product, who are technical people who could help you to explain your concepts, your ideas to the development and to the machine learning team to make sure that the product is developed at its best. So having a key fellow co-founder who takes care of all these technical questions, including technical roles hiring, is key at the very start. Now, what to ask when interviewing technical talent? Nowadays, we are competing as a small startup based in Switzerland. We are competing with all large players in the world, pretty much, because now with the remote home office being introduced slightly over a year ago, of course, we gaining access to additional talents around the world, and we don't need to be in the same four walls anymore. But at the same time, of course, we start competing with all other companies who are hiring tech talent at the same time. And at once we had lots of applications, I believe almost 500 or 600 when we would advertise machine learning engineer, and for software engineers even up in several thousands when we would post our job postings for hiring people into Switzerland. But when we started hiring remote, when everybody started hiring remote, the number of applications actually went almost down to zero. So that means as an employer, you have to stand out in this sea of other job posts, and also you have to be able to provide a very fast and diligent interview process to make sure that good candidates don't drop out in between, and also after you have hired to make sure that they stick around. These are all the challenges that you will be facing as a new startup founder in the machine learning space. And again, we compete with a lot of big players like Google, Facebook, IBM, just Amazon, just to name a few. And it's really up to you to make sure that you introduce your company at its best, whether it's your website or whether it's your own social media profiles. When you talk to the candidates, they usually check thoroughly with whom they are, or they should check thoroughly with whom they're about to have an interview. So this is all something to be really taken care of as part of your employer branding per se, to make sure that you stand out and appealing for candidates, for remote candidates around the world, tech talent specifically. So in terms of the compensation, we have built a matrix for remote tech talent that we actually very transparent about, so everybody at Nanos knows what everybody else is earning. And this compensation matrix is consisted of several blocks. One is salary compensation itself, and it's being built based on salary base based on your location, based on a little bit on your experience and education in the case when it comes to machine learning field. And what we would like to do, we were pretty much following this one rule. We wanted to have the same buying capacity, let's say for software engineer in Switzerland versus a software engineer in Ecuador, as an example. And this worked for us really well once we built this matrix. So let's say if nominal salary for a software developer is 100,000 in Switzerland for startup, then let's say for Latin America is pretty much half of this price. And if we go to Asia, it could be also a bit more lower. And then additionally, we would definitely distribute stock options. So stock options is a very important part for making sure that tech talent sticks around, that they're interested, that they feel co-ownership of the company, that they're interested in staying with you as long as possible until you get there. And this is something that also needs to be taken care of from the start, putting together employee stock option plan for your employees, at least at 10% of the equity, and I'll be talking about that later. So it's probably quite interesting to also learn what to ask during the interviews, because during the interviews, technical interviews, I will not be covering those because that could be covered by your key tech CTO or head of product. But when it comes to really understanding whether if a person is the right cultural fit, if the person has enough experience and has the right attitude to join a smaller company versus, for instance, going for a larger company and work in a large company and have all the kind of social benefits and everything else, and certain stability which startups cannot provide. So I ask a few questions which helps me to understand how serious candidates are about the work. First of all, I'll try to get an understanding whether if they did background check on the company and also on myself, because that means the diligence, they did their homework, they came to the interview prepared. Happens a lot when during the short phone call I have, usually I request after the candidates send their first information about themselves. It is really not so many actually do this diligence, and that means they were not very serious about joining the company. For them, it's just yet another interview, and they're shopping around for better conditions to join, and then maybe hop on another job 3 months later. So this is something you also don't want. You want serious candidates who took time preparing for the interview. Another question which I ask a lot is, which is really helpful, I ask them where they see themselves in the next 2 to 5 years, whether it is research environment, academia, or is it industry, or maybe is it a corporate research? Because when it comes to the tech talent, these are the 3 major path they could take. And if, for instance, a candidate tells me yes, he or she would really like to go back to academia, then, for instance, at Nanos it is possible. We have PhD students working in our team, doing their PhD while contributing to the product, but it's rather an exception. Not many startups can provide that. And usually if a candidate tells you they would like to go later on for PhD or for master thesis, that means they will be away from your company for a year or more. And life cycle of a startup can be very short, and you need to maybe prioritize towards candidates who have different ambitions, for instance, to stay in the industry. Same goes for candidates who would prefer later on to switch to corporate research, which means they would love to go to, let's say, Google and other large companies and receive double or triple or quadruple of their salary, what they would get with you. And that's maybe their major goal. They just want to get some experience. Again, it's totally fine as a candidate to plan this way. But for you, if you have really small resources in terms of time and effort and guidance of junior machine learning engineers or even software engineers, you would be thinking twice whether if you should hire this intern and devote enough time to make sure that they grow and deliver something useful for your product, and then depart 6 months later. We had those cases as well. Again, more on hiring and how to compensate a remote tech talent and what to ask when interviewing tech talent could be found on my LinkedIn profile, my articles, and also on my YouTube channel, as well as on my website, sashaschriber.com. I'll be continuing with the next topic. Let's dive in a little bit into the stock options for your employees. Imagine you have created a company, you have set up equity of 100%, let's say with co-founders. And I've seen lots of cases when co-founders early on decide to go 50-50, let's say it's 2 co-founders, friends, and then they said to go, let's do 50-50 and start a new company. And then one of them ends up doing all the work and another one takes on even a side job or even a day job at another company. This happens quite more often than you think. And this is something I would also recommend you to avoid, because this can be really drastic and really kill your company, because you give away so much equity early on and without perspectives to get it back. This is why a shareholders agreement has to be in place, where you could discuss all potential case scenarios for people leaving your company, to make sure that you keep your cap table clean. Cap table is a spreadsheet where you keep track of all the shares, everything, is owning and at what price they have received it, and has to be updated also frequently. So for the ESOP, employee stock option compensation, I would recommend to set apart at least 10%. This is shares equity, which you in a way should have to contribute yourself. So you pay for it first and you give it to your employees, of early employees, key employees, for free at the beginning, and then you have long enough cliff period just to make sure that they stay with the company, that the right person, that they were the right person to hire, and you give them enough equity. You can always give them just a little bit of equity and then give them a little bit more, let's say 20,000 now in stock options, and then another 20,000 a year later. And it's important also to have a slower vesting period, not more than 2% a month, so each month they get a little bit more equity released, which they can not really sell immediately. So this all needs to be regulated with the shareholders agreement and employee stock options agreements. These are two very important documents which you would need to have. Hopefully you will be able to hire lawyers to do so. If not, there are plenty, of course, templates. Plenty of templates online or in specially dedicated sources. So in terms of the stock options, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Again, there is very long list of articles on these topics on my social media profile on LinkedIn. Please have a look and ask me questions if you have any. Next topic I would like to touch upon is patents. This is something that really is important. It comes important when you're building a technical product and you want to secure the IP space to make sure the competitors don't overstep your toes, and also it could be a potential attraction for investors, although not all the investors really appreciate patents. Those are usually quite costly and sometimes hard to dispute. So, which means even if you hire if you file the patent and somebody is building exactly what you have built already or planning to build, it's really costly process to fight against it. So it's really you have to decide for the company. You have to see whether, if you have distinct budgets, we're talking about up to $20,000 to file to get the protection just in the US. And if you want to have European countries, each and every country costs additionally. But what you could do is you can file provisional patents, and for that you just need to put together a very simple draft, which consists of 6 distinct modules. One is what is the current state of the art of the industry, what exactly your solution is, how is it different from competitors, how you built or how you're going to build it, and a couple of others. And then with this write-up, you pretty much go to lawyers and they put together a final draft with the claims and file it for you. And provisional patents are usually much cheaper. However, they only valid for 12 months of protections, but they also help you to start at least the patent application process, and you can always modify those, which is also can come in really handy, because that's happens a lot also when you build a machine learning product, that you deviate from your original idea or how you do it in order to build something that is viable. Again, patents are very expensive. You have to think twice whether if it's worth it. Fighting patent infringement is expensive, and filing a provisional patent, it is something that I would definitely recommend. Although if you don't file after 12 months the final patent, then of course your protection also expires. So it would be a little bit of the budget wasted as well if you in the end decided not to file your cool idea as a patent. More on the patents, again, on my website, sashaschriber.com, or on my social media channels, YouTube and LinkedIn. Next one is a very cool topic, is how do you do marketing for your machine learning startup? And it really depends on actually it depends on whether if you're building a B2C product or a B2B product. And it's really cool, and it's a short-term trend to build B2B machine learning products. So product that caters to larger, medium-sized companies, B2B, business to business. And investors love this model. So there are a huge cohort of investors and VCs and family funds who only invest in B2B and don't invest in B2C for various reasons. Because probably they feel there's much more potential to get a higher return on investment. That's probably the only assumption they have. But I have to admit, in my opinion, it's really short-term trend, because what we see also at Nanos, if you really look deeply, direct-to-consumer tech is really picking up. All kinds of various self-service platforms are now picking up, and there's also now number of investors, funds are growing who invest particularly only in B2C, direct-to-consumer technology. So that is a smart way of dealing, planning your product roadmap. So first you catering to B2B companies, and then you branch out and use part of your developments and technologies already produced towards direct-to-consumer product. And when you are building a product for B2B, the way you start marketing is definitely, you cannot just go out there, place ads on Google and Facebook and Instagram and expect B2B leads coming back at you and buying your probably product rather on expensive side, probably with some subscription service. So which means you have to build up a sales team and also leverage professional networks like LinkedIn and others in order to reach out directly to your potential buyers and decision makers in the company. There's also longer sales cycles, of course, when it comes to B2B products, marketing of B2B products, and also very distinct content strategies. So you have to build up a lot of materials, presentation decks. We at Nanos have about 20 different versions of the product deck for our B2B product white label solution of Nanos. And it is something that also takes a lot of time and effort from your team or yourself if you're still a very, very small team. In terms of the direct-to-consumer tech, it comes actually a bit easier because you can really rely on paid marketing, PPC campaigns when you advertise your direct-to-consumer product, because your customers, they are on Google and Facebook. They're searching for services similar to yours. They most likely will find you if you bid for the right keywords. Same for Instagram. Your potential customers and customers most likely are on Facebook or on Instagram or on TikTok. So it's rather easy to get to those, to get to their attention, to bring them a knowledge about your product. So again, nevertheless, it is always a hybrid of really good content strategy, producing materials, articles, videos, short videos, product walkthroughs that needs to be built for both for B2B and B2C technical products. Next topic would be fundraising and exit. How easy will it be to raise money for my new tech idea? I have to say upfront, it is now much easier than it used to be. So that's the good news. The bad news, there is so many, obviously, different technical concept and ideas floating around, and some investors are getting also technical savvy. They now get technical advisors on board, which is highly recommended for investment fund to have if they invest into technical startups, is to actually have technical advisors who could screen all the startups and to understand better how far-fetched the idea is they're planning, the given startup is planning to build. So I was told raising money in the US is easier than raising money in Europe. I would have to disagree. I feel there's a lot of money currently that is being allocated for tech startups in Europe. I'm not talking just about Switzerland only, which is a fantastic startup ecosystem for deep technology startups specifically, but also in UK and other countries, also Germany. Nowadays, there are a long list of family funds, VC investors, angel investors who potentially are willing to search for the next big new thing. There are 4 types of investors which you could reach out to for your technical startup ideas. One is, of course, your startup could be self-funded, because if you just created a prototype and tried to reach out organically to as many users as possible, if it's a direct-to-consumer product, I've seen these cases in the past, companies reaching out 10,000 users with the research prototype. So it's possible to do without any marketing budget and even company being created, if the service is free. So that's one way of it was completely bootstrapping your idea before you actually agree among themselves that you're up to something really big. Second second type of investor is family fund. Those are also fairly easy to reach. Usually they have a simple landing page, easily searchable online, and also they usually keep an eye on various startup accelerators and so on. So it's really nowadays easy to get just simply reaching out to them on LinkedIn with direct message also works. I did this in the past, and it really works nowadays. Now during the pandemic, everybody is online and very active on social media. Next type of investor is, of course, angel investors, various angel investors, former startup founders who built companies, exited companies, and now looking to reinvest their assets into ideas of other people. So this is something also which is really interesting for a fellow founder to explore, just to connect with other fellow founders who are a bit more successful and try to get the recommendation to other family funds or to themselves if they would really be willing to invest money into your startup. And of course, the last but not the least is VC funds, which at early stage usually they not very keen on investing unless they see some serious traction, which means up to 1 million recurring annual revenues, which is sometimes quite hard to reach if you're just starting out. Is really out of reach for most of the companies. So this is why it's not really an option. Another important topic is, when is my company ready for sale? It is really interesting because I've seen so many cases, tech startups being sold really early just because they had one patent that that particular larger company really was interested in. Sometimes it's sales happen, exits happen when strategic investor is invested into the company. By strategic investor, I mean a larger company who is acting in a similar field as yours. For instance, let's say a good example would be optimizing something, marketing technologies for e-commerce, and then being bought by Amazon, who would be potentially also strategic investor or potential buyer per se. So this comes with disadvantages if you're planning on selling your company to a strategic investor or a larger company who is in your field. There is a lot of hidden underwater stones which need to be really looked carefully on, because sometimes strategic investors, they pose different conditions, limiting conditions onto companies. One of them could be, for instance, that this particular company could only be sold to this particular strategic investor. It happened to one of my friends, one of my colleagues, and it was really, really painful. It practically stagnated the whole company because they couldn't take on investment from other companies, and they could only sell to this particular very first investor, and that pretty much they didn't have any room to move around, so they had to be sold to this strategic investor at a very low price, and it was really, really good and exciting idea. Sometimes machine learning companies, more often than not, they're being sold because of their technology. Rare cases, they're being sold because of a very large customer base or a product or a tech team. So that's another type of the exit, is a technical hire. So with your technical talent you have accumulated over, let's say, a course of a year and a half. It's an early stage, let's say 5-6 techies, very smart, working towards a product. It's a very attractive target for larger companies to acquire, because of the tech talent nowadays is very hard to find. So I am done with my pitch, with my talk, with my monologue per se. I would love to hear questions. If you have any, please drop them into the chat. A very good question. If you're working close to academics, universities, would it be a benefit to apply for research grants? My experience with research grants They are very time consuming, and there's no guarantee for success. It's good to have a partner as a university where they have a distinct pipeline, at least certain success rate, you know for sure. Some, let's say 60% of all the grants are being approved, and we did this in the past, and that works. But if you, let's say, just have some connection, let's say technical advisor from the university, and you plan to apply for a research grant in Europe or beyond, my experience, it was very time consuming, very costly. We had to produce an enormous amount of documentation and projections and God knows what, which we could not really reuse anywhere else. And in the end, we were rejected. So that was very painful. Next question about patents. I love this question. Enforcing patents is expensive, but what is your experience with patent insurance? We didn't do patent insurance. What we did was provisional patents once, or actually 2 times. And it really paid off because it's a little bit, you buying time. You invest $500, you file provisional patent, and practically you cover a little bit already the space and have time to develop your technology and think really, do you really need to file this patent and spend these thousands of dollars in lawyers' fee and lawyers' hours, and also your time, because you have to explain lawyers your technology, you have to check all the claims, all the summaries of claims, and also provide additional documentation if requested by the patent committee. So, but per se with patent insurance, no. But I would be happy to hear your experience if you had any. Finding the right patent attorney in this space is also key. I could not agree more. We switched 3 law firms who had been working on our patents. We also worked with a sort of cheaper version, volunteers per se. We end up scratching all the work, starting all over with a serious law firm again. So it was a little bit of waste of money, but more waste of our time, of our machine learning engineers. I would say if you found a good patent law firm, do share contacts here in the chat, because it's really hard to find those that are reasonable with their billing hours. Those are that also don't bill you all at once, that would maybe give you like an option of dividing your payments into monthly payments. That helps a lot to not increase your burn rate too much, because this is something that also investors looking at a lot. How high is your burn rate? And if you all of a sudden get the $20,000 bill from your law firm and you have to fit it somewhere, so it obviously immediately reflects on your burn rate, which is not great. And sometimes law firms, they're also good at putting a lot of billing hours only to tell you afterwards that your solution is not really patentable, because they cannot patent code, they cannot patent software architecture per se. So you have to really be creative and turn these conversations around and argue that this is not a software architecture, this is machine learning architecture, and there's a certain novelty in how you use certain machine learning technology, specifically in this field, in your area, or this specific feature a user need. So this is something that also takes a lot of your time as a founder, and particularly if you don't have enough technical background, that means you have to delegate, that means it takes time of your employees or other key founders, which you could have put towards, for instance, developing a greater product. Read the small print. Yes, even reading the small print sometimes, if you don't have much experience working with law firms, it's, they're always better. They're always ahead in the game because they're lawyers, they're being paid for it. But it is really, there's so many things that they could get back at you at, and add additional billing hours. And I'm very sensitive to bills from lawyers. So it took me a while to find the right law firm which don't bill us as a surprise with yet another invoice. But it's a bit of luck. It's a bit of recommendation. Also, referral helps a lot. Our current company we file patents with it was a referral from my past corporate research career from the Disney company. Very nice, very nice. So we are a little bit over time. So in the case you have more questions, I'm very happy to answer those at this following email address. I apologize for the delay on my side. I was actually sitting in another session. So thank you very much, all of you, for your undivided attention, and hope to hear from you. Bye. Take care.